We've got a mashup for you guys today.
We've got 3 fishing tips, 3 hunting tips.
Well, I tell you what, one lure that I've just caught so many fish on is...
Anytime I'm shooting, I'm looking for ways to replicate how I am in the pro. Tripods kind of changed the game for everyone.
No, I think the biggest player in all this is going to be live scope, especially on the ice.
Some of our favorite stories from both hunting and fishing.
Honey, I'm calling from a different phone number because my phone is currently 16 foot down on the bottom of the lake.
So I got out of the blind and tried walking, and I ended up crashing into a tree and then landing in a creek. It was freezing and I couldn't find my way back to the blind.
Great expert tips.
Yeah, and a few random interjections that hopefully are helpful, but hopefully mildly entertaining as well. We'll see.
Yeah, what's entertaining is for sure like your hair journey.
Yeah, that one.
So
it is.
Yes. Yeah. So
just
thanks for being. Yeah. Thanks for being our entertainment.
Yeah, you bet.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, I don't feel the greatest.
Yeah.
A little bit under the weather when we were recording this. This in the morning, and I had my coffee, but I'm just not all the way cleared yet.
But by the time people are watching it, it's a new year.
It is. It's a new year. And you know what? We had a wonderful 2024.
We did.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. We had some great guests.
So many.
Learned a lot of things. Heard a couple of great stories. I got to tell a few stories. So all in all, awesome.
A great year.
Yeah. What are we going to do today?
So we're going to reflect back on some of those tips.
Okay.
Those stories that we loved, some of our favorites. So we're going to, just hear from a few different experts.
Perfect. Just a nice little mashup, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive into it. What do we got first?
So first up, we have Jadyn Thomas talking about forward-facing sonar. This is a more recent episode people have probably seen. We will link all of these down below also. Yeah, let's take a look at what Jadyn has to say.
Can you just talk to me a little bit about like your strategy going out with forward-facing sonar?
I use it more as a search tool than I do sitting down and fish. I still like to sit down and fish with like a Vexlar or flasher, especially if I'm like hole hopping or fishing outside. Every brand of forward-facing sonar has an option to make it portable, and there's tons of aftermarket stuff or independent companies that make products to make these portable, like these shuttles use lithium batteries, these poles. So it's if you sit down and fish with forward-facing sonar, like I'm not knocking anyone who does it. Like if it works for you, great. I use it a lot more just to find fish. So like when I go out, I typically, still look at maps, where's my high percentage area, depending on the species I'm looking at, and drill my first hole and scan around. If I don't see fish, I'm not going to fish. I'm not going to put a line in the water.
So one thing I really love about Jadyn is just like his brutal honesty and the way he just talks real about forward-facing sonar. There's so many, I would call it misconceptions about it, about how it's just going to destroy the fishery. And while it's a super useful tool, it's a great one when used and paired with like knowledge of the fishery in order to like gain a better understanding of what's going on. So like a guy like Jadyn is not going to keep 1,000 fish and decimate the fishery. Like he eats fish.
Right.
I have seen that.
And he respects the fish. He treats them well. He treats other fishermen with respect.
Yep. But like breaking down water and stuff, it's super useful for that. Because it's like, okay, I have a spot. I think there's fish there. Let's find fish. Let's fish it. Oftentimes he's moving to like a Vexlar or a traditional sonar instead because of like interference and stuff. Because there's a lot of, let's be honest, there's a lot of people that are using forward-facing sonar out there now. Fish are getting educated to it. And he's kind of getting her dialed. So It's pretty cool to see.
Next up, something from Jason Mitchell. Another tip. So the rattle lure for ice fishing. I thought this was really
lure
good.
are we going to talk about? I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to say it's going to be the PK rattle spoon.
All right. Let's see what we have.
Jason, what's a clam lure that you're really excited about trying this year?
Well, I tell you what, one lure that I've just caught so many fish on is a rattling PT. Okay, it's got a Pyrex glass. Now we had a clam rattle spoon years ago that had the Pyrex glass on a lead body, and we tried all kinds of different things with adhesives to get that rattle to stick to the lead. And one of the things we had a problem with the rattles falling off the spoon, to be honest with you. And so we discontinued that lure a handful of years ago. And but one of the things I really liked about that Pyrex glass is that glass makes the rattle chamber much louder, amplifies it much more so than traditional brass. And so that lead glass combination is the loudest rattle chamber that you can create, that we've seen from all the testing that we've done. But then one of the things that happens is figure out a way to use a zinc alloy instead of lead. Then that way we can make different edges to encase that rattle chamber. And so then that way we're able to build a rattle spoon that the rattles didn't fall out. Okay, and so then the next test is, okay, now the zinc alloy, will the spoon work the same and jig the same as what the lead spoons did? We found it actually gave a little bit better flash, a little bit more swing when you rock it. And so I've been testing those lures for a while, and we came out last year, but it's a lure that, like on Lake Irving, Alice, Devil's Lake, Early Ice, Red Lake, Lake of the Woods, even Mille Lacs, when you have aggressive fish, don't overthink it. Whoever has the most fish come underneath them wins. Okay? Like if you have 5 fish come underneath you and you catch half of them, and I have 15 fish that come underneath me and I catch half of them, I look way better, right?
All right, maybe I said PK instead of PT, but that's the one that I meant.
Okay.
So I'm going to chalk it up as a win anyways, and I'll vouch for this lure 100%. I actually just took it out on Red Lake the beginning of December. I still had it in the package, and our cameraman started fishing, and he's looking through lures and what to put, and I gave him that one, and he caught a fish like within 2 minutes.
Wow.
Guarantee it. I was like, yes, this lure works. I love the rattle, the shape, the fluttering. It's a fish catching machine. It doesn't matter if you're doing like crappies with the smaller size or with the larger size. I love how they come in 3-packs with the larger treble hooks now. Those are exclusive to SCHEELS.
And so is this a new one for this year?
So it's not a new spoon per se, but the 3-pack is new because they took it.
Colors.
Yeah, they took it and they made an oversized treble hook on it because, people had complained about hookup ratios and like, oh, they got too small of hooks on that. Like SCHEELS actually listened to the responses of the customers and put that 3-pack with larger treble hooks. So you got to get them.
So add that to the list.
Yep.
New tackle.
Put it on the buy list before you head to any of your walleye fisheries.
All right. Now we're going to talk some electronics. Another great tip.
Okay. I like electronics.
Yeah. Some Garmin, live scope.
Okay.
Are you there?
I'm there.
You're there? Okay.
I'm here.
So we have a tip from pro staff angler Josh Waukau.
Talk about like your fishing style or your fishing success experience pre-Garmin versus post-Garmin.
Yeah, so, I think the biggest player in all this is going to be, live scope. And especially on the ice if you think about moving around on the ice, it's a little bit more difficult to move around on the ice versus around in a boat. You just can't just say, oh, I'm going to go over there and point the boat that way with your trolling motor and move. You got to physically pick up your auger and start punching holes. So when you have live scope, and I have the Garmin live scope bundle, you're able to point your live scope transducer in any direction that you want, and you can start looking for fish or looking for structure, looking for weed edges, looking for wood. And it eliminates the time of searching and drilling. Because if your traditional sonar, you put the sonar down and you're only seeing that small cone right beneath the hole, versus, your forward-facing sonar, you're able to pan 360 degrees, and depending on your depth, you can see 100 feet out. So it was a complete game changer and eliminated wasted time, I guess you could say, out on the water. And ultimately, it is provided to be very successful for me and my buddy who also has live scope to go out and make the most use of your time is really what it came down to.
This is a great tip for anybody that's not fully convinced to get forward-facing sonar. It saves so much time and it saves so much effort. Your back will thank you from having to drill, an eighth of the holes you normally do to get where you want to go. I have a great example of this from my last ice fishing trip where we started out fishing and I looked at mapping and I found a really nice rock pile on Red Lake of all places. If anybody's fished that, it's just a bowl. There's hardly any structure, but Then I found a rock pile and I was like, oh God, the fish got to be here. But it got pounded by like walking traffic because it wasn't very far offshore. So I didn't know that beforehand. So it was kind of a wasteland. I mean, I saw a few fish moving through. We hardly caught anything. So then it's like, okay, we have to move. We need to go on a search mission. So we went like 3 miles to the east, a little bit deeper, and we started drilling a hole. We popped the first hole, and we just scanned around like he explained in this video, and found like 4 fish. So then we moved another 200 yards, popped again, found 8 or 9 in a revolution. And then we were like, okay, this is better. Let's go past. And then we found like 3. So then it's like, oh, let's go back to that original one and find the spot on the spot. So then we drilled a hole within, 50 or so foot of that one where we found fish. And then we saw fish again. So it's like, okay, this is an area that has fish roaming around. And then we just set up shop, and then we got our limit plus extras. So
Nice.
It's like, if I wouldn't have had that, we would have likely like moved a little bit from that rock pile, and we might have caught like 3 fish. But we did a big move. We located fish. We located where we wanted to set up on those fish, and then we were successful. So
Does Red Lake, does that lead into one of your favorite stories, your fishing stories this year?
I've got a pretty good story on Red. So
I think we should tell that.
we're going to tell that one. It's my adventure with trying to find crappies on Red. I'd fished it last March. And they were all schooled up, and they were like little angry piranhas, and that was super fun. But it was very different in the beginning of the ice season because they weren't schooled up as much. They were more spread out. So we drilled like 200 different holes trying to find them, and moved like, I don't know, probably 3 different miles, and just pop hole, scan, pop hole, scan, pop hole, and we just couldn't find them. And then, but there was one spot where I'd scanned around and I'd found some fish. So it's like, okay, there's signs of life here. Let's, I'm going to mark this spot. And if we don't find the mega school that we're after, we'll set up here. So we did that and set up, caught not much, but we saw fish. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to go on a little exploratory mission nearby. And I ended up about, 200 or so foot away from the house. And then I found this like structure under the ice. It was like all these ice shards and stuff. And there was a wall of crappie right under it. So I was like, oh yeah, I found them finally. Sweet. So I drilled a hole, and then all that slush and stuff that I'd seen on Sonar came up into my hole, and like it was all
You're
these
catching
shards.
slush.
I could so I had a struggle bringing my auger back up. And then when I tried to put the deucer down, like I would get it down, but it wouldn't read. And then when I tried to pull it up, it was like stuck. So I was like, oh God, I've got like a $2,000 unit here that I can't get out of the ice. What the heck do I do now? Finally got it out, and the fish, and like, I wanted those fish so bad because we drilled like 200 holes. So like, I am going to catch you. I see you. I am going to catch you. So I took, and I just started scooping out the shards for like 2 minutes until I finally saw a little bit of like water instead of the ice. So I'm like, okay, set my lure down, and I used the deucer as like a spear to spear my lure through that ice. And as soon as I got down, I caught a 14.5-inch crappie.
Wow.
I was like, that's why I did that. And all the ice shards came back up, and I tried one more time and was like, oh God, this is terrible. So
It was a lot of work.
it was a lot of work.
But
It was
worth
the
it.
most work I ever did for like 3 crappie. So we'll just chalk that one up as a learning experience.
A learning experience, yeah. All right. Well, let's go to the open water for another story.
Deal.
All right. So Jadyn Thomas, one of the biggest walleyes that he's caught. It's a good
Okay.
story.
I like big fish.
It's a good one.
My biggest walleye fishing, my favorite body of water, and I was with my best friends, like the people I always fish with. So it couldn't have played out, any better if you read it in a book. And it just worked out because as soon as the fish hit the net, I've seen a lot of big fish in my time. The biggest fish I've seen with my own eyes is 31.5 inches. And as soon as that fish got in the net, I was looking at it, I was like, the only fish I've seen this big or look this big was that 31.5. So I'm thinking like this this gotta be it.
This is the one.
This is it, yeah.
So then we measured it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, 30 and a half. So at that point, my buddy, or Tony Agri, he works at SCHEELS here, master with the camera, great fisherman, great friend of mine. He said, like, hey, I have my professional studio camera it's in the truck. If you want, I'll go get it, and we can do this right. I said, if you don't mind, I'd really appreciate it. So we kept the fish in the net, kept it in the water, took ultimate care of it. I'm huge on catch and release, especially, and not just catch and release. You got to take care of these fish, especially when they get that big, that old. They're special fish. They've earned the right to live. So you got to do everything you can with it. A lot of pluses on our side were too, came from shallow waters. You don't worry about barrel trauma. It was early in the year, so water's cold, so that helps. Those fish stay super healthy, super charged up. So she was out of the water for no more than 60 seconds in between measuring it, weighing it, taking pictures. She was in the water the whole rest of the time, and right after we were done, she kicked off in less than 5 seconds. So I have no doubt she's out there swimming around, super healthy. And as big a fish she was, usually those are very old fish. She probably was an older fish, I'd say around that 15, 20-year range.
Wow.
But, super healthy. All her fins were intact. There was no beat up from the spawn. All her teeth were still there and very sharp. She had tons of strength. She's going to be around a long time. She's probably going to get even bigger.
First of all, I just want to say congrats to Jadyn on joining the Dirty 30 Club. That's a great accomplishment, something I haven't achieved quite yet. I've got plenty in that 28, 29 range, but no Dirty 30 yet. So
Gonna have to go fishing with Jadyn.
Apparently. So yeah, dude knows what he's doing. He's everything we filmed with him has been really good. Love his perspective, love his insight, love the story. And it goes to show you that we had a lot of stuff where we talked with him about forward-facing sonar and technology and all that. But that one is I'm going out in the spring and I'm pitching jigs because I know this is a pattern. There's going to be fish here. There's going to be bigs hanging around. And it's just kind of yes, he uses forward-facing sonar a ton, but also, yes, he understands fish behavior and can catch them without it.
Right.
So super cool. Again, congrats, Jadyn. I'm jealous, but I'll get there one day.
We can all strive to do something like that.
Absolutely.
Also, I have to mention, if people are watching, the evolution of your hair.
Oh boy, yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
That was a nice style you had going on there.
Yeah, I've I handle a lot of the comments on Instagram and Facebook and videos. And especially one popped up I was reviewing the new Matthews bow, and everyone's like, oh, I don't trust a guy with a man bun. And I'm like, well, I've been shooting bows my entire life, and my first one was an 86 Browning with rollover cams. So it was if you can't give me just a little bit of credit for that, then come on. But yeah, my hair evolution has been an interesting ride.
Yeah.
So
There's more to come in this episode, too.
Yeah, when I first started at SCHEELS, I had kind of long hair, but not really. And they made us cut it once it was past the collar. I'm way past the collar now, but they kind of got a little more relaxed on that. But I watched this show Vikings on the History Channel. I'm not going to plug a ton of different videos that are completely not related to hunting and fishing, but that one's really good. And the main character is Ragnar, and I saw his haircut.
Since your inner Ragnar coming out.
My inner Ragnar is coming out, so.
I don't know about the female Vikings, but I don't know what their hair looks like.
It's all braided and pretty awesome.
Okay. Maybe I'll have to try a style.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? You do you.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own journey.
Right. All right. Well, Mike, I don't know about you. You know what my favorite story is. It's fishing, ice fishing. When you went ice fishing, and
I'm somewhat familiar with this one.
It maybe hurts a little, but it's something that I felt like we should share again.
Okay, we'll share it.
Bonus tip number 6: tether to go on your phone when you're ice fishing, so you don't lose the dang thing down the hole.
Yeah. That's a tough story. I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to that. Maybe not the falling down the ice hole situation, but just the phone gone, forgotten forever.
Oh, and one of the funniest parts about it too is we had planned with my wife to I was going to pick up the kids when I was going to get back, and I had to grab a phone from somebody else and call her, and she was working at the time, didn't answer. I'm like, honey, I'm calling from a different phone number because my phone is currently 16 foot down on the bottom of the lake. And I don't know what time I'm going to be home. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the kids. I'll try and get a hold of you. And I ended it with like, I'm so sorry.
Please let me go ice fishing again.
Yeah. It was just, it wasn't the best day ever. Let's just say that.
You got the same shirt on.
I do have the same shirt. Geez, I should buy more clothes from SCHEELS. Yeah, I mean, I think the number one takeaway here is tethers work really good.
Yes.
If you buy a case, I actually have it in my pocket right now. So this is my new phone. This one is obviously not 17 foot under the ice. And the reason is because it's got a little kickstand here, but it also works really well to clip a tether to. So when you lean too far down the hole or towards the hole when you're trying to film epic content, it doesn't fall out of your chest pocket that you forgot to zipper up, and it catches. So I actually was saved by that at Lake Winnipeg. I don't know if my phone would have actually went down the hole, but it went out of my pocket. So
yeah,
and the tether was attached to it, and it actually helps with stability when you're doing selfies.
Okay.
When you catch a good fish, like
the tether
kind of locked on to that spot.
Sure, it's not going anywhere.
So yeah.
But I did ask you after your Red Lake trip just recently if you had your tether on, and you did not.
Long story short, the answer is no.
Right. So I was concerned. I was like, I thought we learned something.
Sometimes you just can't teach an old dog new tricks.
But the intention is there.
The intention is there. I was more careful with it. So
all right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what? If you ice fish long enough, you probably lost a phone. And if you did and you got a good story, tell us a little bit in the comments. I want to see it. I wanted like a hand raise. I lost my phone.
Yeah, right.
I feel you.
I understand. Yeah. All right. Moving on to some hunting.
Yes.
I know we're in ice season.
All it takes is like the word to kind of snap me back into it. So
okay.
We'll be all right. Hunting is year round. I mean, let's be honest, especially if you're a bow hunter, you're thinking about, shed season's going to be here. Let me see travel patterns of what they're doing right now. Let's see what bucks are still alive that we can target for our hit list next year. So I'm officially back in a hunting mindset. So let's go.
All right. Reuben Alexson shared a great red dot training tip. I think this one was a tip that you were like, this really helped me. I was at Gun University with some of our other associates.
A lot of the things, whether it be shooting archery equipment, shooting a pistol, precision rifle, snowboarding, wakeboarding, whatever, a lot of it boils down to executing the fundamentals. And I think whenever you get into a new sport, a new activity, there can be a lot of things that are very like daunting and kind of like almost they can kind of discourage you when you think about like how long this is gonna take me to learn this new thing. And there's a reason why like the absolute professionals at whatever sport we're watching on TV, they execute the fundamentals at a very high level. And if you can break those fundamentals down into kind of actionable things that you can do, that you can be instructed to do, it can be very simple. And I think one of the cool parts about shooting with somebody who's experienced is they typically have a pretty good understanding that it's not some magical formula. Some people, of course, maybe are born with certain, characteristics or physical things that help them do things better. But ultimately, at the end of the day, shooting a pistol, shooting a rifle really boils down to executing those fundamentals and not believing that it's some sort of like magical fairy dust that you just have to get sprinkled on you to do it well. It's just executing the fundamentals.
Shout out to the Vortex guys for putting on an incredible training. They were just very positive because like I'm not the best pistol shooter. I'll just admit that right now. I don't do it a ton, but like I know enough to be dangerous, but like I didn't have the best form. And they just talked to me about, like using your left hand as like your stabilization tool. Because I had always thought like, oh, it's pretty much all with the right hand. But no, literally the right hand is just to squeeze the trigger, and like target acquisition with a red dot, unbelievable. Once you understand form properly, it's just, you pick up the target so fast, you can stay on so much better, and it's just a better shooting experience. And it gives you instant feedback too, because it's like, oh, I watched that dot, juke left as I was pulling the trigger because I anticipated the shot, or I'm not holding my form to follow through on the shot. Like, you don't know that as much with traditional iron sights, but like it's right in front of your face when you're using a red dot. Just great overall tip, great overall experience, and makes me want to shoot more.
Yeah. And I think one thing I love about that too is that all of our experts at our stores get to go through that training too.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're going into the store and you're talking to someone, they're mentoring you on those things exactly.
Yeah.
How to use that.
It's like I got there and I didn't know a whole lot, and it made me feel like an expert. And now, so like, if you have somebody that already feels very confident shooting and then going through that training, it just gives you even that much more of an edge. So it gives me a lot of respect to the people that are walking around the gun shop ready to help somebody get into what they need.
Right. All right. Another tip. You had such a great tip on ozonics.
I had a good tip.
You had a good tip, believe it or not.
Debatable.
You had several actually, but
Okay.
This is one that I thought was really good.
Thanks for buttering me up. I appreciate that.
I should have started out the episode this way, And now is this like something that goes in, because you said it's above you, so it's in your pack, or like how is it attached to you?
Basically, it's a little machine. It's I'd say the size of, it's probably maybe 5 inches by 4 inches by like 3 inches tall. So it's just like a little box.
Sure.
And then there's an attachment that you can put it on to a tree or a blind or whatever based on where you're going. And so I put that in the pack, and then I'll hang it above me.
Cool.
And then as long as the wind isn't whipping too bad, it destroys most of your odor. It works well in a tree, not insane. Where it really works is in like a hard-sided blind, like one of your redneck or your muddy style blinds. I actually basically change the way I hunt when I have the ability to do that sort of stuff. So good example of that is I used to be a whitetail guide out in North Dakota for a few years, and what I would do is I had this 5-acre bean field secluded way back next to a couple of bedrooms, one on each side, and so deer would flow through that, and then they'd come out of this corner of the field, and then it was, like I said, it was a river bottom, so there was this big river that was on the northern side, and I'd park on the northern side, and I would go across the river, and I'd go up this little ridge and into this blind. And, I tried to figure out a bunch of ways to hunt this piece, and I failed a lot, and I got busted a lot. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get smart with this. So I put this big tower blind on the corner of the field, and then I would crawl up this ridge, go right into the blind, and I would hunt it. I started hunting it with the wind still blowing over the water, okay, they're never going to smell me because the wind's perfect. But the problem with that was the deer couldn't smell anything. So they didn't feel confident going out into the field because they didn't know what was there. So, and I saw this with my trail cameras too. I'd see okay, they're there one day, they're not there one day. And then I would follow weather patterns and projected winds and match them up with camera dates. And then I'd notice that they would come out when the wind was blowing where they were at, then they could smell what was in the field. But if the wind was blowing over the river, they knew they couldn't smell anything out there, so there'd be a lot less deer coming. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out a way to hunt it when the wind is blowing from the field to where they're bedding. But, you can't really do that normally.
Right.
But if you have a hard-sided blind and you put an ozonics in there and you run with one window open and you blow the ozonics out there, so all of your scent is contained in this blind and it blows out one single window, and you put the ozonics on the top and it destroys your odor molecules, then you are literally scent invisible.
There's a lot of mixed emotions that come with ozonics. There's obviously the people that are like, my grandpa hunted with a cigarette and red flannel and shot giant deer. And that's absolutely true. Like, people have pictures to prove. But when it comes down to gaining an edge, when used effectively, Ozonics can be really incredible. Like, it's not a magic button or a magic tool, and it can be a little bulky to bring in if you don't have the right pack, which I've done plenty of times. And then I got a little smarter with my setup, and now it's not a big deal. But when you can truly like contain the factors that go into where your scent is going to travel, and then you use Ozonics, like the example in that clip is like, I'm in a hard-sided ground blind and I have one window open and my scent's only going to travel one direction, and I'm going to eliminate it with the Ozonics unit. You can become as close to scent invisible as possible.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Use it in a tree with the wind blowing multiple different angles in like the bottom of a saddle. It's not going to work. And then you're going to have a negative experience. But if you do it the right way, it can be incredible.
Game changer.
Game changer.
Next up, great tip from Matty Nelson. Now, this was a really fun episode.
Tripods kind of changed the game for everyone. The biggest reason people won't take them hunting is because they don't know how to use them correctly. And then if they do try and use them, it's without any training or practice, last minute. And of course, you're not going to make a great shot off something you haven't practiced with. So anytime I'm shooting, I'm looking for ways to replicate how I am in the prone. In the prone, my body's on the ground, my shoulders are square, everything's relaxed. I got 2 points of contact for the gun. The bipod's holding the front of the gun up. I have a rear bag holding the back of the gun up. I'm taking me out of that system as much as possible so that I can be as accurate as possible. I'm just managing the recoil and then running the bolt, getting back on the target and breaking the next shot. So if they square their shoulders up like they do in the prone, they take that support hand and they run that thumb down on the opposite leg. So if my tripod is coming down, I have 2 legs in the back and then 1 leg in the front. The 2 legs kind of line up with the width of my feet. And I'm going to put my hand on, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to put my left hand thumb down on the right rear leg of the tripod. And I'm going to push against that tripod just a little bit, a couple pounds of forward pressure. I'm going to pull back with a couple pounds of rearward pressure on the pistol grip or the stock of the rifle. And what that does is it allows me to then not have to run that gun with my shoulder at all. I can take my shoulder all the way out of that gun and just hold it with only a couple pounds of pressure. It's not a 20-pound bow draw or a 70-pound bow draw, right? I'm just a little bit of pressure. And you'll watch that reticle go from an extreme left and right, up and down wobble to it'll settle down to just an inch or 2 off of where your crosshairs want to be all the time. So you'll go from 70% off the target to 30% on the target to 100% or 90% on the target very accurately, just by setting that up properly and trying to replicate your body where you can get into the prone and then take your shoulder out of the gun.
Matty is awesome. He is the most energetic person. It's like he's just chugged 6 Red Bulls and is ready to go.
Yeah, I think he was drinking some sort of energy drink while he was talking to us. Yeah,
likely.
But from Seekins Precision, his tripod setup tips I thought were awesome.
Oh man, if you thought that was awesome, you should have been there in person. Like, I did my best to describe it and have him recreate it, but like to physically be there. And if you own a tripod like this, actually try and do it. It will, promise you, your shooting will get infinitely better. And if you don't own a tripod, get one and try it. And then it will be even, well, you can't be more than infinitely better. I should have left infinitely for that one. But it's incredible how much more accurate you can be just by putting pressure in the right places to create stability. And I did not think you could do that with a tripod like that, but trust me, you can. I mean, I was ripping that target at 600 yards like every time. Wow. And I can shoot, but I am no world-class shooter by any means. And it made me feel so confident out to 600. I was like, I can hit a baseball every time at 600 yards. So it's super cool. And I would have never thought you could do that on a tripod.
Yeah, it's awesome. So that was a great tip. Also, he had a great story.
He sure did. It tugged at my heartstrings.
Yeah, mine too. So we won't even give this like an introduction. We'll just
play the video. I want to hear a hunting story from you. You got a good one?
This spring, we went out bear hunting. It was me and my daughter and a couple friends. We went in on horseback to a part of Idaho that's not far from here, but you can't drive in there. You can only get in there on foot or on horse. So we went in probably 15 miles. We were horse camping, which was super fun. It was my daughter's first time doing something like that. She'd got her hunting license, and it was the first time we were going after any type of big game for her. And we rode in on the first day and kind of spotted and saw some bears here and there, but everything was a mile or plus out and across some huge canyon that we didn't want to try and negotiate. So the following day we were out on a little, just riding around in the afternoon, because, you know, bears are up in the morning and they're getting ready to start moving around at night, but they're not really cruising around at noon in the middle of the day. So we were out just kind of playing around on the horses and seeing some cool things. We were on our way back, and of course, across this canyon, there's a bear. We're like, oh, snap. So we jump off, and this is another tripod story, right? Oh, I'm not going to have time to set up a tripod, blah, blah, blah. Okay, like, go out and miss. That's fine. So we jump off the horses. I set up 2 tripods, one for a spotting scope and one for her. So I get her tripod set. She knows how to put her gun on it. She's got everything ready. She's glassed the bear. She's getting ready. I got the laser rangefinder up, and I tell her, hey, it's this far. It's 550 yards. She was shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor Slam. I said, hey, you need, I think it was 3.2 mils to hit it. We got, 6-7 mile an hour wind, so I need you to hold, 4/10 to the left. And she waited for a little bit, and that bear was creeping up the rocks. It was this big cliff face, and it creeped up, and then whoop, kind of plateaued on this top. And she was like, hey, I think we're good. And I said, go ahead and run it. Poof. And she broke her shot. She's shooting off a tripod from a full stand. She shot it, saw the hit, saw the bear go down, one shot and done, right through the boiler room, like legs went out in front, dropped it on the rock, and then it tumbled off and nosedived off this cliff face like 40 feet, just skydive. So it was a 550-yard shot, but the depth of the canyon was, we didn't think it went as deep as it went. So by the time we got there on foot to recover it, round trip, it was almost 2 miles, only for a 550-yard shot across the canyon.
Dang. It's cool to see, like, these people that are so passionate about products are passionate about their family too.
Right.
It's so cool to get people into the outdoors for the first time, like teach your kids the way of the land and all that stuff, and to just see their success and be like probably more proud than they are.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Awesome.
Have that experience with her, like just like you with your daughters.
Yeah, for sure. I look forward to hunting with them so much. It's going to be a great time. I mean, I don't want to I'm not ready to take them on bear hunts yet, because that's pretty intense. But I think my 4-year-old would go with me if I let her.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So it'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be a good road.
Then we had like a near-death experience. This was a pretty intense story.
This was intense.
So Sam Ubel.
If you have free time, make sure to watch the full episode on his YouTube channel, because it's pretty wild. This is like legit near-death experience. And if anyone's experienced vertigo, that is not something to laugh about.
2 years ago, I've never hunted with an outfitter before, but we started working with Vail. And as a introduction to Vail, they took us, myself and one of my other videographers, Chase Nation, on a deer hunt with an outfitter in Minnesota. My biggest mistake was not sharing my location with anybody. So they put a pin on a waypoint pin on a map, right? And it was about a 2.5 mile trek on this huge farm, like 4,000 acres. I had to cross 2 rivers, and I get back to this blind that had been set up. I never hunted here. I walked in the dark right around 4 o'clock. I hunted all day. I didn't bring enough water, so I was dehydrated. It was 6 degrees standing temp. With 12 minutes left, a nice buck came out. I was with my muzzle loader. I was positioned between 2 very high cliff faces, so there was extreme reverb, so the echo was intense. And although I was in a blind, I had the muzzle out of the window, but when I pulled the trigger, I'm not sure if it was the percussion blast reverbing off of the cliffs or the cap, going off and burning the gunpowder. Whatever happened, I just know that that deer crashed. I turned the camera around, started doing like my closing interview, and then my world flipped upside down and I fainted. I came to, and it was like shades of blue, like almost dark. And I had a rendezvous point I needed to get back to, and I thought, man, I'm so dizzy. I can't believe how dizzy I am. But I got to get there because I know somebody heard the shot, and they're going to be sitting there drinking a beer, expecting, Sam's going to show up any minute, and they're just going to be lost in conversation, and I'm going to be sitting here suffering. So I got out of the blind and tried walking, and I ended up crashing into a tree and then landing in a creek. There's a creek about 12 yards from the blind. And at 6 degrees, I had fingerless gloves and all that. I was freezing and I couldn't find my way back to the blind. So I sat up against a tree, just trying to figure out where everything was. And then I eventually saw the lats of the ladder, and I got over there and climbed back in. I was soaking wet. I had 2nd degree hypothermia. Body temp was down to 93 degrees. And the vertigo knocked me out. I think four times I fainted on the 911 call. No reception back there. So the only thing that works on your cell phone is that SOS call to 911. And luckily their GPS was able to pick me up, and they had 30 search and rescue people come out, get me out of there and evacuate me. But we managed to capture the majority of that on film. Jeez. And for what people just love watching that kind of thing,
And for our final clip, what do we have, Ashley?
So for our final clip, Kayla Nevius, when she was
also known as Kayla Johnson now. Congrats,
what was she? Johnson. What was it? A mountain lion?
Let's play the clip.
So last fall during hunting season, I did my first successful, completely solo hunt, and that was brutal, having to pack a buck out of the mountains by myself. That was definitely one of my other top hunting moments, though, because other hunts I'd like gone in by myself, I'd got the animal, but then I'd been able to like call my dad and he could come and help me cut it up, or help me pack it out, or help me drag it out. And this was my very first, and then I had other hunts where someone else was there where they could like take a portion of the deer, or they would take, at least I would take the deer, but they would take all my other gear or something. And this was my first, like, you're out here by yourself, you better figure out how to make it work. And that was incredible, because I'd gone to the spot another couple times and I really wasn't seeing what I wanted to see. So I knew I needed to wake up earlier. I needed to get in there earlier, and I needed to get back farther and higher than I had before. So I was literally like hiking. I was like cranky that morning. I was like, I don't want to do this. This is going to suck. It's going to be so brutal, but I'm like, I know I need to do it. And I'm like hiking up this steep mountain that was so steep where, like, I don't know if you guys have ever been in the mountains where like you take one step up, but then you immediately fall down a half a step. So the whole time you're just, I'm like hiking up the mountain like that. I'm like, this sucks. This really sucks. I hope I see something. And, I ended up, 3 or 4 miles back, and I crested over this ridge and I saw a deer. I glassed it with my binos, and it was like kind of a small one. I was like, you know what? Like, that's not what I'm here for. And I had my rifle. So I was like, it's okay, but that's not what I came back here for. And then I looked over and I saw a bigger deer, and I was like, that's what I came out here for. And so I put my spotter on it immediately. Once I saw him in my spotter, I just like confirmed. I'm like, yeah, that's one that I'm going to want to take. I set my backpack up vertically, and first I tried to lay down prone, put my gun on my backpack, and I was too short. So I had to like creep up to the edge, like all the way to the edge of the ridge. And I actually had to sit with my backpack like up and down, with my gun laying on the pack. And then I just kind of used my arm as support. I put my arm on my knee for support as my backrest. And the deer was like working away from me, and he was just about to crest over the next ridge. And I shot him and he went down. And that was that was incredible. Again, like being out there by yourself. I also had a lot of like things happen that previous year, like emotional things. So that was like waterworks let out, which I'm not usually emotional when, I have a successful hunt, but that was one of those things, like finally putting my hands on the deer and having to move it by myself on a steep mountain, having to debone it by myself. It was kind of like, wow, this is like not only like a huge success. It was my biggest deer that I ever killed with a general tag in that area, living there my whole entire life.
That was pretty incredible.
Yeah. I think, my favorite part about it is doing something for the first time that you don't know exactly what you're getting into, and you have to figure out how to get out of the situation. That's super cool, and I think that gives her a lot of validity, to be honest, because I think it's super easy for people to just be browsing Instagram and be like, oh, she's just somebody that, has things handed to her, and that's absolutely not the case.
Right.
And I knew that before because I followed her for a long time, and it just gives me a lot of respect for her drive and ambition. And I think it's a motivating story for anybody that wants to do things like that and has never experienced it before. You just need to jump and see what happens. You got to trust yourself that you're going to get out of this situation and you're going to create a pretty incredible memory.
Yeah. Keep going. I'm inspired.
You're inspired.
Yeah, just keep going.
I hope to inspire a few people in this podcast.
Right.
People that are watching the video, if you've stayed along this long, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you enjoyed the year we had of podcasts, and it's been a fun ride, and we're really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. I'm excited for 2025, more guests, more tips.
Absolutely. And it's going to go a lot farther if you hit that follow button and you share this content. See you
next
this year.
episode.
See you next episode.